I grew up in a beautiful suburban area in Massachusetts, and my family appeared to be flawless from the outside. There was an unwritten rule, though, that everything in our house had to do with my older sister, Kate. My parents' pride and delight was Kate, the golden kid. Her accomplishments, such as her debate trophies, academic credentials, and thoughtfully framed pictures from school functions, adorned every wall in our home. In contrast, my personal achievements received minimal mention. Kate had recently been chosen for the debate team, so my parents were hardly aware when I made the honor roll in middle school. My mother said, "That's nice, dear," after I won a painting contest in high school. And then she turned the topic back to Kate's impending college tour. This dynamic persisted even on birthdays. My parents were too busy getting ready for Kate's college interviews to remember to get a cake for my 10th birthday. Their remedy? They attempted to recycle Kate's graduation cake, which still had her name in a beautiful frosting design. I recall feeling invisible as I stared at it, and knowing that my sister would always be more significant than me, regardless of what I did. Throughout my entire childhood, this trend persisted. Kate consistently received the best education, the newest technology, and fashionable clothing. In contrast, I received used novels and hand-me-downs. My parents handed me Kate's old, larger violin, which was too large for me to handle, when I showed an interest in playing the instrument. My mother brushed it off when I requested a smaller one. We already spent so much on Kate's piano lessons this year. The disparity in treatment was much more pronounced by the time I started college. My parents could only afford to pay half of my tuition at a public school, yet they were able to fully fund Kate's education at a renowned institution. They clarified, "We're still paying off Kate's student loans, Elizabeth. You'll have to figure out the rest on your own." Because of the connections our parents had set up for Kate, she was able to succeed in her career, while I worked 2 part-time jobs and barely kept up with my studies. The family relationship apparently deteriorated after Kate's marriage 7 years ago. To pay for her lavish wedding, which included a designer gown, a lavish location, and more than 300 guests, our parents took out a second loan. They insisted that nothing was too good for Kate's special day and never cared about the cost. Naturally, I was expected to be the ideal maid of honor, planning the bachelorette vacation, arranging bridal showers, and managing any last-minute emergencies. My mother reacted angrily when I told her that I was overburdened with work and couldn't keep up with all the obligations. "Don't be selfish, Elizabeth. This is your sister's special time." The twins then arrived. My folks were ecstatic when Kate revealed she was expecting. They went all out, using their retirement funds to assist her and her husband, Jack, in purchasing a home close to them. They said, "This is different." When I brought up the fact that they had previously stated they couldn't afford to assist me with my college expenses, "This is for our grandchildren." My role changed once more as a result. I was now the go-to babysitter, not simply the forgotten daughter. Watching the twins for a few hours while Kate and Jack went out was the first modest step. After a while, I found myself giving up my weekends to take care of them on a weekly basis. My parents would guilt-trip me whenever I attempted to establish boundaries, since Kate would always scream about how overwhelmed she was. "This is what family does, Elizabeth." However, it was more than just a familial duty. Kate expected me to be there when she needed me. For her, I was supposed to sacrifice everything, and I couldn't deny that I was being used, no matter how much I loved my nephews. One evening during a family meal, I broke the good news that I had received a promotion at work. It was a significant move for my career, even though it would involve additional hours and sporadic travel. My mother scowled instead of offering the brief congrats I was hoping for. "But what about the twins? Your sister needs you here." Kate stepped right in, acting as though my work was a bother. "You can't take that job, Elizabeth. Who will help me with the boys?" With a sigh, my father, who was always the mediator, stated, "Family should come first, Elizabeth." I had sacrificed my weekends, my time, and my energy for them. They constantly expected me to be available, which resulted in me missing out on relationships, travel, and even better employment opportunities. And now they wanted me to decline a job offer so I could continue to be their free babysitter? I came to the realization that they would never prioritize me if I didn't start doing so. I decided as a result, I was taking a vacation by themselves. I wasn't going to let them ruin my plans this time. I knew I had to keep my personal vacation a secret as soon as I made the decision. Like they had done so many times before, my family would manipulate me, guilt trip me, and eventually ruin my intentions if they found out. I began searching for a calm, serene retreat away from busy tourist destinations. I spent hours looking before locating the ideal location, a little isolated island resort in the Florida Keys. It was a comfortable haven with white sand beaches and pristine waters, nothing fancy. A place to relax, detach, and, most importantly, be totally alone was just what I needed. The issue? My relatives still thought I was going to Florida, but they thought I would be bringing them along. During our monthly family supper, I erred by bringing up my upcoming vacation. Perhaps, I reasoned, they might be pleased for me. Rather, my mom's eyes glowed with joy. She said, "Oh, that sounds perfect. We should all go together. It's as if I've just extended an invitation." Kate intervened before I could respond. "Yes, the twins would love the beach, and you can take them swimming while Jack and I get some alone time." Hold on a minute. My holiday was abruptly being turned into a family trip, where I would once more serve as the unpaid babysitter, even though I hadn't even consented to bring them along. I tried to explain. I really just wanted a solo trip, my mother reprimanded. "Oh, don't be selfish, Elizabeth. It'll be fun. We can even book a better resort so everyone can be comfortable." They immediately got to work organizing my holiday. The opulent seaside resort they chose was far different from the tranquil getaway I had initially reserved. They talked about family activities that I didn't care about. What part do I play in this? Providing entertainment for the children while Kate and Jack unwound. As I lay in bed that night, I could feel the all too familiar fatigue beginning to set in. It was occurring once more. I didn't care about my time, wants, or plans. However, I wasn't going to let them take control this time. I therefore made a choice that would alter everything. I took the risk of booking a different flight to my initial destination, the isolated island resort, rather than canceling my trip. I disabled location sharing on my phone and paid more to make sure my name was not associated with my family's reservation. I was in charge for the first time in my life. My family carried on organizing our trip the next week, totally oblivious to the fact that I was covertly organizing things myself. In an attempt to help me, my parents upgraded my reservation at their resort. Kate even sent me an itinerary that detailed how I would supervise the twins during their date nights. I cooperated. I grinned and nodded. On the inside, though, I was calculating the days. It was the morning of the journey. My luggage was filled with more than just clothes, and I was finally leaving behind a lifetime of frustration, sacrifice, and silent resentment as my family and I traveled to the airport. They thought we were all checking in at the same time. Rather, I informed them, "I need to use the restroom. I'll meet you at the gate." However, I didn't use the restroom. Rather, the first proceeded directly to my personal check-in desk, located in a whole other terminal. After checking in and passing security, I made my way to my gate, which would lead to the private haven I had set aside for myself. Then came the SMS messages. They were perplexed at first. "Where are you, Mom?" "Gate B12 is where we are." "Kate, were you disoriented?" Then came the panic. "Dad, how are you, Elizabeth?" "Mom, I'm sure you're not doing what I believe you are." And lastly, the rage. "Kate, what are you able to do to US? The twins are in concern." I inhaled deeply as I waited for my flight to board at my gate. I had been the ideal daughter, the trustworthy sister, and the always available aunt for 35 years. However, I choose myself this time. After that, I switched off my phone. I was free for the first time in my life. No last-minute childcare. No phone calls that make you feel guilty. There are no compulsory responsibilities. It was just me, the sea, and a much-needed respite from my family's expectations. I was quite relieved when my jet touched down on the tiny island, but I also experienced an unanticipated feeling of guilt. I had been conditioned for years to feel self-centered when I did something that wasn't related to my family. However, I told myself that now was my moment. This is something I deserve. It was more difficult than I anticipated the first 2 days. Despite my phone being off, I found myself involuntarily checking it. Kate would typically be texting me about watching the twins tonight, Or they're probably eating lunch now. I kept thinking. It was odd not to have someone else set my schedule. However, something changed on the third day. I made the decision to enjoy my independence to the fullest. I enrolled in a surfing lesson since I'd always wanted to do it but had never had the time. I laughed more than I had in years, even though I was awful at it. I met a group of lone tourists who were also fleeing the stresses of their daily life when I joined a yoga class on the beach at sunset. I had talks for the first time that were lighthearted, easygoing, and unrelated to my family's demands or obligations. Then, on a whim, I accepted a man I had met at the resort's coffee shop for a dinner date. It was simply two folks having a nice meal and a nice discussion, nothing serious. However, it served as a reminder that I had a life apart from my family. By day 5, I was at last at liberty. My family's expectations no longer weighed on me, and I stopped looking at the time. I concluded that the time had come. I switched on my phone once more. It burst with alerts at once. There were 147 missed calls, more than 300 text messages, several voicemails. The fact that my mother had reported a family emergency even prompted a call from my workplace. I ignored them at first. However, my insatiable curiosity led me to begin listening to the voicemails. My mother's communications were initially worried. "Elizabeth, where are you? We're extremely concerned. Please call us back." Then they became angry. "How could you do this to your family? The twins are inconsolable. Do you even care about them?" Then came the guilt tripping. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us? Did we raise you to be so selfish?" Kate sent equally awful messages. "You ruined everything. The boys won't stop asking for Aunt Lizzie. You better explain yourself when you get back." However, one message, the only one that wasn't hostile or deceptive, jumped out. My father gave it to me. "Elizabeth, please just let us know you're safe. I don't understand what's happening, but I just want to know you're okay." My father seemed unsure for the first time in my life, as though he wasn't sure if they had treated me fairly. I didn't respond right away. Rather, I sent the family group chat a single brief message. "I'm safe. I'm having a wonderful vacation. I will reach out when I'm ready. Please respect my space." I mute the discussion after that. I then went back to my hammock on the beach, book in hand, and relaxed. I let myself really unwind for the rest of my journey. For the first time in years, I kept a notebook to process the years of anger, frustration, and fatigue. I relished the silence, which had never existed in my life, while I watched each sunset. I relished small pleasures like leisurely breakfasts, lengthy beach walks, and in-depth discussions with complete strangers. I came to a crucial realization. I have been available to everyone but myself all my life, and that has to be altered. I realized toward the end of my vacation that I couldn't stay away from my family indefinitely. They would insist on explanations. They would want to regain authority. I therefore devised a strategy. I made reservations for a 2-night stay at a hotel rather than heading straight home. Why? To emotionally prepare for the encounter, changing my work emergency contacts would prevent my relatives from contacting me through my employment. I should upgrade the security settings and locks on my apartment just in case. I decided to put my limits in writing to avoid succumbing to pressure. I was aware that I needed to be clear, composed, and tough when I finally addressed my family. This was more than a single trip. It was about reclaiming my life. I anticipated this moment. I was going to do something I had never done before after decades of having my needs ignored and years of being the obedient, trustworthy daughter. I was prepared to defend myself. After my vacation, I stayed for 2 nights at a motel rather than returning home right away. Why? I had to get ready for the event. In order to prevent my family from using my job as a means of coercion, I modified my emergency contacts at work. Since I wouldn't rule out my mother showing up unexpectedly, I changed the locks on my apartment. To avoid being coerced back into servitude by guilt, I put my boundaries in writing. And then I took a chance. I was back in town when I unintentionally liked a coworker's social media post. Less than 2 hours passed. The number of calls on my phone exploded. At the condo, my intercom was constantly buzzing. In fact, I could see my mother and Kate arguing with security outside my building while attempting to enter from my hotel window. I inhaled deeply. I was ready. I posted the following in the family group chat: "We need to talk." Meet me at the coffee shop on Main Street at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I will not discuss anything outside of this meeting. If you want to talk, be there. Otherwise, respect my space. Suddenly, I switched off my phone. I calmly practiced what I intended to say all night long. I had never had a talk as difficult as this one. However, it was required. I picked a seat in the corner when I got there early. It provided me with a clear view of the entryway and a simple escape route in case things became unmanageable. At 10:02 a.m., they entered. My mother's eyes were flaming with displeasure, her lips pulled into a tight line. Kate's trademark guilt trip gesture, with her arms crossed, already gave the impression that she was going to cry. My father's face was unreadable, and he was strangely quiet. And Kate's husband, Jack, who I didn't think would arrive. Thank God, no twins. They took a seat and waited for me to say something. I didn't. I simply stared at them, allowing the silence to linger. At last, my mom broke down. Elizabeth, what the hell were you thinking? Why were you leaving your family behind? Ignoring your family? I inhaled deeply before uttering the words I had been suppressing for years. I went on vacation because I needed a break. And I didn't tell you because I knew you'd try to take it away from me just like you've done with every moment of my life. Kate laughed. Oh, come on, Lizzie. You're being dramatic. I paid her no attention. For years, I've put my life on hold for this family. I've babysat. I've sacrificed promotions. I've been expected to drop everything at a moment's notice. And for what? So I can be treated like I don't matter? My mom's speech became abrasive. We have done so much for you. How can you be so ungrateful? Family is about sacrifice. Calm but forceful, I looked her in the eye. Yes, Mom. Family is about sacrifice. However, this relationship should be mutually beneficial. When have any of you ever sacrificed for me? Quiet. Awkwardly, Jack cleared his throat. My dad's eyes lowered to his hands. Kate started crying. I don't believe this. You're blaming me for having kids? For having a life? No, I firmly but softly answered. I'm blaming you for treating me like a free nanny instead of your sister. I took out my phone and looked at my calendar for the previous 12 months. Every single weekend for the past 12 months, I have watched your kids. We have planned every holiday and major event around you. I have skipped vacations, turned down promotions, and exhausted myself so you could have a break. And the one time I do something for myself, you all act like I've committed some kind of crime. Kate's face flushed. Well, you're single. You don't have kids. You don't know what worn out even means. I shook my head and laughed a little. And whose fault is that, Kate? When exactly was I supposed to meet someone? When was I supposed to build my own life when every waking moment was spent dealing with yours? She didn't have an answer. They were stunned for the first time. I put down my cup and remarked, This is what's going to happen. I have finished serving as your unpaid babysitter. If you need childcare, hire someone. I am not changing my career path for you. I am taking the promotion. I will not be available every weekend. I won't be at your disposal. I am setting boundaries, and if you can't respect them, then I will have to walk away completely. Kate dramatically wiped away her tears. So what? You're just going to abandon your family? I grinned, a contented, serene smile. No, Kate. I'm finally choosing myself. And if that means stepping away from people who don't respect me, then so be it. I had a weird yet amazing feeling when I exited the coffee shop, a relief. It was the first time in my life that I had defended myself without compromising. Jack sent me a note later that evening. I'm sorry for my part in all this. You're right. We've been unfair to you. I'm going to step up more as a parent. A minor victory. My dad? He texted briefly. I don't agree with everything, but I understand now. Take care of yourself. One more minor victory. Kate's and my mom? Quiet. That's okay, though, because I wasn't seeking their approval for the first time in 35 years. I had regained my life, and I refused to allow it to be stolen once more. I was free for the first time in my life. There was no pressure to put my life on hold for Kate and her children, no guilt, and no last-minute calls for babysitting. Just me, living my life as I see fit. The trip wasn't finished, though. I was aware that establishing limits was only the beginning. Adhering to them was the true challenge. So I made some significant adjustments. I relocated to a different apartment. Yes, it was a tiny apartment, but it was secure and uniquely mine. No unexpected visits. My phone number has been updated. It was exclusive to my close pals and my place of employment. No more passive aggressive texts from Kate or voicemails filled with remorse from my mother. I concentrated on myself. I joined a reading group, took pottery courses, and even began dating informally. It was strange at first. I didn't know what to do with my free time because I had spent so many years planning my life to meet the demands of my family. In fact, I felt bad about having the first weekend all to myself. Then I recalled, guilt is just the price of breaking free from their control. So I continued. And that guilt began to lessen week by week. My family initially made an effort to pretend nothing had changed. I received a handwritten letter from my mother a week after our altercation in the coffee shop. It said, Elizabeth, the first know you're going through something right now. When you're done with this rebellious phase, we'll welcome you back with open arms. When I read that, I burst into laughter. She was still not understanding. There was no phase to this. Now this was my life. Naturally, Kate acted like a complete victim on social media. The first post on Facebook, some people are so selfish. Family means everything. Some of us actually step up and take care of our responsibilities. Two on Facebook, my kids miss their aunt. It's so sad when people turn their backs on the ones who love them most. I choose to disregard it. Then she went too far, though. My employer sent me an email one evening. Hey, just checking in. Your mother called the office today and said it was an emergency. We didn't give out any info, but just a heads up. I was furious. She had attempted to reach me by using my employment. That was it. I sent the family group chat one last message. I have made my decision. If you cannot respect my boundaries, I will be forced to go no contact. This is my final warning. I then turned off the conversation and carried on with my life. Kate's husband, Jack, sent me an email a month later. It was easy, I just wanted to say that I see now how much we've relied on you. It wasn't fair. I'm stepping up as a parent more now, and honestly, it's been eye-opening. Kate is still struggling with this, but I hope one day things will be different. Take care. That was unexpected. However, it did teach me one thing: when necessary, individuals can change. Jack had to take charge since I wasn't there. And how did it end up? He was more than capable of raising his own children. I was hardly the same person 3 months after my trip. My social life was genuine. I was doing so well at work that I was promoted again. I felt more content. I ran into an acquaintance at a cafe one day who I hadn't seen in years. Wow, she exclaimed as she examined my face. You look different, lighter, happier. I grinned. Since she was correct. I had been burdened by my family's demands, expectations, and guilt for 35 years. Now, though, for the first time, I was living for myself. I was not going back either. If this entire experience has taught me anything, it's this. It's not selfish to want your own life. It is not harsh to set limits. It is not betrayal to say no. Additionally, choosing yourself does not entail leaving your family behind. It entails having enough self-worth to quit being their emotional target. My future? It's completely open. My family could actually understand one day. They might not. In any case, I am at liberty, and I will never again give that up.